Rock and roll doggy.
Sort of a musical journey, really. You know? No, it's a musical journey.
Hey everybody, welcome to Rock and Roll Doggies. It is our podcast as two lifelong friends breaking down music that's been important in our lives. I'm Jason, and it's funny, I don't go by JJ. I haven't done a radio show in about a year and a half because of COVID and different things. And so I really don't go by JJ as much. So Don, my friend, you can feel free to call me whatever you like.
Bubba? Can I call you Bubba?
Bubba is a name I will answer to. That's fine.
Okay.
So,
who knows that it may make its way into this podcast. That's
fine. It's so good to be back. We had kind of a hiatus with taking care of some life stuff, all positive, but just, got busy with other things. And so we're back as we break down the music of U2, album by album, track by track. Now, Don and I have known each other since we were teenagers.
Looking for ways to save on your energy bills? AES Indiana has you covered. From smart thermostats to home energy assessments, we offer simple solutions to keep your home comfortable and your costs down. AES can help you save money and energy with kits, tips, rebates, and more. Visit aesindiana.com/ways to save to learn more about how we can help you save money. AES Indiana, helping you discover real ways to save.
Grew up in the same town, and we've always loved this band U2, and this is a great opportunity for us to talk about what the music has meant to us. And so thanks for listening. Appreciate everyone who is connected to us on social and in other ways. So we are looking at the album Rattle and Hum. This album was at their peak. This is the biggest they ever were in terms of recording and sales, and they were the biggest band in the world. And the Joshua Tree was riding high. Rattle and Hum came out, and Rolling Stone said, it's an expression of U2's urge to have it both ways. A sprawling double album that incorporates live tracks, cover versions, collaborations, and snippets. They were embracing America. Before we get into track by track, Don, what are your overall thoughts about Rattle and Hum?
I think this is the most underappreciated work of their career. And I think it was met with mixed reviews. And I understand that to a degree. It's a different kind of album. It's a mixture of covers. It's a mixture of previously unreleased studio material. And it's a release of live cuts of previously released material. Edge said this, and I ran across this not long ago. I thought it was interesting. He said, quote, Rattle and Hum was conceived as a scrapbook, a memento of the time spent in America on the Joshua Tree tour. It changed when the movie, which was initially conceived as a low-budget film, suddenly became a big Hollywood affair that put a different emphasis on the album, which suffered from the huge promotion and publicity, and people reacted against it. I think people reacted more against this perception that U2 was being overly self-indulgent. And really what they were doing, and maybe the band did not project their motive clearly, but really, and I say this as a fan, so perhaps I'm a little biased, I truly think that they were immersed as fans in the American music of that time. They were into the B.B. Kings and the John Coltrane's and the Billie Holidays and so on and so forth. And that served, I think, to a lot of people, myself included, as a gateway into a different genre of music that really I had not experienced before. And I think a lot of the critics tend to overlook that is that it's not as much self-indulgent as it is they were fans, and thereby by being fans, they introduced people in their teens and early 20s and mid-20s perhaps to a whole different genre of music that, quite honestly, I was totally unfamiliar with.
Yeah, that's a great point. And also, I think you alluded to another point, that was this their choosing to make this a huge Hollywood movie with the accompanying double album soundtrack as a CD? Like, were they part of a hype machine at the apex of MTV, that whole late 80s surge of super promotion of stuff? Now, I'm not saying that they didn't enjoy the ride and love all of that. And I just feel like that oversharing of U2, that overexposure, like you said, like I think if you didn't like U2, you kind of were over them. You kind of had enough by that point. And so that's what maybe soured some people. They're like, oh, roll your eyes at, really? We need a U2 movie and a new album? So I think I get that. Of course, it's not me because I loved it. This was like, give me more of my favorite food. I'll take it all, you know?
Right.
So I'm able to look back now with a more constructively critical eye. I mean, I definitely, we're not fanboys at this point. And I think back then we might have liked anything they did just because it was them doing it to some degree.
Maybe it's not musically it's cornerstone of their career, but it is very critical as setting the path for what happens in the 90s. If you do not have Rattle and Hum, you do not have Octung Baby.
Oh, no question about it.
You do not have Zooropa. You do not have Pop.
But it's also the ending of the Joshua Tree era, which got torn down as, with the famous phrase of Octung Baby is the sound of tearing down the Joshua Tree. This is almost the back end of the Joshua Tree phase, which exactly what you said. You don't have this, then you don't have Octung, and it's part of the narrative. It's part of the story of the band. So
yeah, because they reacted in a sense. It may have been more about the sound of four men cutting down Rattle and Hum, because people, Joshua Tree was critically received, and it was a huge commercial success. And then, like you said, Rattle and Hum comes along, and people are going, I don't know, I've had a little bit of too much of this. And then, they promote it and, so on and so forth. So I think it's kind of the hidden critical piece to their career. And it, like I said, it really, I think, lays the groundwork for what happens in the 90s.
So as we look at Rattle and Hum track by track, we're not going to spend as much time on the live versions of songs that we've talked about previously. But in keeping with the format, let's go through track by track. Let's just start out with the opening track, and you drop the needle, so to speak, on Rattle and Hum, and the first thing you hear is a song Charles Manson stole from the Beatles. We're Stealing It Back. Here's Helter Skelter, a song that I didn't really know in depth. I mean, I knew it was a Beatles song and Charles Manson, of course, all that. But, they invigorated that song for me. They elevated it to a new level and revitalized it for me.
I think for me, it's almost the opposite. I think that, and I think they used Helter Skelter as the opening song because that was kind of where they were in their career. Everything was, they were in the midst of so many things with the movie and the huge success from the Joshua Tree and so on and so forth, that their career felt like it was Helter Skelter. And when you, the Beatles, of course, put this on their White Album, and I read once that McCartney said, we were trying to create the most chaotic noise, and I'm paraphrasing, the most chaotic noise we could on an album. This is actually a very stripped down version of what's on the White Album.
Oh, you're right.
It's more accessible. And I don't know that U2 could pull off Helter Skelter White Album version. I mean,
you're probably right. They didn't do it a service as far as what the track in studio sounds like and what it really represented as far as what the Beatles did. So Helter Skelter, I like listening to it. It kind of sets the tone for that. This is not going to be a U2 album necessarily, just U2. Great opening track.
Track 2, Van Diemen's Land. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this would be the Edge's first solo performance on an album. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's probably one of the tracks, and we've mentioned these kind of things before, where you kind of skip over it. But it's a good little song. What's your take on it?
I got no use for it.
Really?
I mean, I'm
surprised to hear you say that. I don't know why, but
it's a curiosity. I remember, like you said, it's the first time you hear Edge singing. It's interesting. I don't think it's a great song for him. I don't want to trash it because it's not bad. I just don't understand it. I don't know why it's here. I feel like it's part of this is the first thing I would take off of, the bigger conversation is which songs if you were going to condense
Yeah.
let's say Rattle and Hum is too much. If you were going to condense it, and if you don't think it's too much, that fine. But like, I would not include this song here. I don't think it has any use. It's just doesn't. I don't think it serves any purpose. It's best thing I can say. It's interesting. It's a bitter pill I swallow here. That's what the song is to me.
It is a song about a poet who I believe was exiled to Australia and then later I think found his way into the United States somehow, part of a Irish Republic Brotherhood, I think, organization. And he was, well, first of all, he was a rebel rouser, right or wrong, I don't know.
It's a
but
rebel song?
It was a rebel song. And also that maybe his material wasn't all that good. I remember reading Edge, who spoke in tongue-in-cheek once, saying, was he exiled because of what he said or how he said it? I could see why you would have that take. I don't fully agree, but I understand why you would say that.
I just feel like it's a sound check. Like,
yeah. And two, if you're laying out an album that is going to be heavily influenced by American music,
mm-hmm.
Do you want your second track to be a song that is heavily Irish? It has an Irish kind of drinking song overtone to it.
And it's the first time that your guitar player has done the lead vocal.
Yeah.
It's what we used to call in radio a train wreck. It's got an up-tempo song that slides into and crashes into a downbeat song, a slow song. And so when you get taken for a ride here with Helter Skelter, and then you crash into Hold Me Now. I don't know. This is, to me.
Do that again. Can you do that again?
Oh, hold me now. I feel like this is where people talk about unfocused or the criticisms of Rattle and Hum. I think that's one of the reasons. To me, I'm like, who thought? It seems like they just threw a bunch of stuff out there. To me, we've talked many times, the order of tracks on an album is important. And I feel like I wrote down a new order of tracks.
I have this in my head. Yeah.
I think you should go straight from Helter Skelter into Desire. I would just clip Van Diemen's Land out. What I'd like to see, and again, this branches off into something else, but what about a box set later of like the tracks that were recently discovered, never made it onto that album?
Like Octung
Bruce has done it. Yeah, right. Bruce has done this a lot with putting out tracks, the album tracks that is like all these unreleased songs from the River and from different eras of his career. And I think that I would love to hear a lot of the tracks that were left off of. And I feel like this would be a nice little nugget I'd like to discover, but I don't need it on a big release album.
I've defended this album. I mean, I don't really go out looking for people to pick fights with on this album, but in my own mind, I've defended this album against critics. But however, I do think that there is a very legitimate gripe about this album to which I would very much agree, and that is the track listing on this album is poor.
It's poor.
If it were me, I would actually open up with Angel of Harlem. I would not open up with a cover song of the Beatles, and I wouldn't then transition into Van Diemen's Land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the flow is
poor.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. That maybe even open up with one of your strongest new songs.
A song that says, "Hey, this is what this album is about. We're going into blues and jazz and gospel." And instead you do something that's about as far on the other end of the spectrum as that, Helter Skelter. And then you come back and do a kind of a glorified Irish folk song.
Yeah. And I'm not even sure that the story was ever told. I feel like it was just kind of out there that was there anything in the liner notes? Who's Van Diemen? What's going on?
It's been played a total of 38 times live. That surprises me.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say 38 live. Times on Spotify.
I think 36 of those were in a sound check. So,
wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, it brings us to what I think could have been a lead track. To me, this is one of the standout tracks on the album. Track 3 is Desire. I think it's a fantastic song. It's pure Bo Diddley, Memphis, Sun Studios, that raw kind of stripped down, like Sun Studios. If you learn about Sam Phillips and that whole approach, it was really cool because it had that Memphis sound. And again, it's Bo Diddley. And that's the first thing you hear critics say about it. Hey, they took a Bo Diddley riff. Okay, great. Thanks. We know, who Bo Diddley is.
Right.
But I mean, it's like this little dun, 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 dun. The whole thing that George Thorogood's entire career is built on that little riff, right?
Yeah.
But it's a superb arrangement, and it's pure U2. I think it really does that marriage of Americana with some kind of grim postmodern lyrics and Needle and Spoon, and I just think it's one of the touchstones of the album.
It's never done much for me.
Oh, really?
It has. I don't know. It just never grabbed me.
What do you mean?
First of all, it's not something that I've ever been able to latch onto lyrically as being. So there are songs on here, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but there are songs. I mean, God Part 2. My gosh, I can latch onto that in a heartbeat. Love Rescue Me. I go, oh, I can embrace that lyrically. I just never been able to embrace it.
Wow, that's.
I think, and you may disagree, but I think that the big selling point of this song is the music more than the lyric. The musical production is better than the lyrical composition of the song.
You think the lyric?
And I'm not. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so listen to that. Here's what he said about this. Bono said this: the rhythm is the sex of the music.
Sure, it is.
So, and I think they musically are kind of projecting that. I mean, we don't want to go dipping into the movie on a regular basis because we're not here.
Now, this is not about the movie.
It's not about the movie, but I did like the movie version of this song better than the studio version. I thought it was, and maybe it was just the visual art of the spinning around and the money, and it seemed like it was almost like it was trying to capture what I thought Helter Skelter should capture.
I don't know why it doesn't grab you. Lover, I'm off the streets. I'm going to go where the bright lights, big city meet. Red guitar on fire, desire. Come on. She's the candle burning in my room. I'm like the needle and spoon over the counter with a shotgun. Pretty soon, everybody got one.
She's a candle burning in my room. I can go there. Nothing else much on that.
Like a preacher stealing hearts at a traveling show.
I can go there a little bit with that one.
That's a great line. She's the promise in the year of election. I mean, this is not high poetry, but these are good little couplets, little kind of imagery, little tags that are like, oh, cool. I love this.
This is an interesting quote. I wanted to own up to the religiosity of rock and roll concerts and the fact that you get paid for them. On one level, I'm criticizing the lunatic fringe of preachers stealing hearts at a traveling show, but I'm also starting to realize that there's a parallel between what I'm doing and what they do.
Sure, there is. It's that whole show business aspect of the preachers. It's the Bullet to Blue Sky, where he talks about preacher in the old time gospel hour stealing money from the sick. So it's that whole rock star axis. On one side is the rock star, and a preacher is so closely related to that. It's that sex and spiritual dichotomy, both sides of the same coin. Rock and roll is both equal parts, both sex and spiritual. And yeah, for sure. That's why I think it is deeper than maybe you give it credit for, because it does drop in that little preacher, the allusion to that. And so, yeah, I mean, if it didn't grab you, that's fine. But
play a snippet for me.
Our sister, he let you go like a preacher stealing hearts at a traveling show. For love of money, getting higher.
Chorus, I guess it's the desire, or I don't know. It just doesn't grab me.
Does that remind you of Train?
Train.
I
hate that. Golly, I hated that.
Okay, moving on.
Hawk Moon 269. Track number 4, recorded at Sunset Sound Recorders in Hollywood, same place as Exile on Main Street. Pet Sounds and Janis Joplin's Pearl were also recorded.
Fantastic.
A very, very raw, visceral tune. Do you agree or
Oh
disagree?
yeah, it's rugged. I like it. It seems like it's got that raw feeling, like it might not be fully done yet. Not that that's a bad thing. I think it's got that raw feeling that it's from the gut.
Yeah.
And not that it's not finished, but like that it's not overproduced, I should say. Yeah.
And lyrically, I think that he's writing ton of to get to that emotion, obviously. But the imagery he's using powerful imagery and addictive components. Honey on your tongue, like the hot needs the sun, like black coffee, like nicotine, black coffee, nicotine, were hard, addictive imagery there.
Yeah, for sure. I think that everything is very sensory oriented. It's very touchy feely. These things that are very from the gut level, like you said, but then also these dark spiritual overtones. The night has no end. Yeah, I wrote these down as some of the best lyrics, I think, on the record. Again, not high poetry, but gut wrenching. When the night has no end and the day is yet to begin, as the room spins around, I need your love. It could be a lover. It could be a spiritual need. I mean, this is absolutely a great desperate love song.
Well, to kind of touch on what you had mentioned before, because I think there is kind of a recurring theme here of preacher, rock star. They're similar, yet they're different. Like a preacher needs pain, like tongues of flame.
Yeah.
Again, we see him going back to that preacher, rock star analogy.
Yeah, but the preacher needs
Comparison.
pain. So it's not black or white, but that it's all kind of a mixture of good and bad things on both sides. Preacher needs pain to bring about the results that he wants. So the preacher's about love, but also he needs the pain, so.
And like oxygen, I mean, that's a nice little, again, like you said, it's not great poetry. It's not BAD as in the Unforgettable Fire BAD.
Yeah.
But it's, again, he's using very powerful imagery here, like oxygen, which is, oxygen, nicotine, black coffee. It's this very deep, long yearning for something that is almost physical.
A desperation.
Yeah. Almost to the point of almost like a psychotic type of addiction.
Yeah, for sure.
Affinity.
Now the oxygen, I like the way he phrases that too, because you're almost missing one syllable to make it rhyme, I believe.
Yeah.
So but the way he stretches it out and sings that is good. It's clever. It's memorable. Like the heat needs the sun, like honey on her tongue. I don't know what the rhyme scheme is here. Like the muzzle of a gun, like oxygen. I just always thought that was kind of cool the way he did that. He didn't try to put in another syllable to make it come out with the right meter. Again, in context of what he's trying to achieve in the song, like faith needs a doubt. Yes.
Like a freeway out.
Yes. That's more about, and now we're talking about the essence of U2, which we come back to every episode. It's that faith, doubt, tension. And it's that same thing there's the dichotomy of the preacher rock star. There's the tension between what is seemingly two extremes, faith and doubt. No, they're not extremes. They're two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
That's my view now of theology and of life. And I think that's a great observation because it's all throughout their music. The permission to let yourself doubt your own faith makes your own faith even stronger and more genuine.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome.
Like faith needs a doubt, like a freeway out. I need your love. Powder needs a spark, like the leaves need the dark. Your love.
So I would say this is a very strong track, and I really like this. And it holds up really well. What is the
I
story
think
of Hawk
that
Moon? The words Hawk Moon
um,
279.
it is supposedly, and I don't think this is probably just mere mythical conjecture. There was some town in South Dakota named Hawk Moon,
Okay.
and they had, of course, at this time they're perusing the West and the Midwest and the Deep South, and they're learning about America, and they're going into these podunk places in Arizona and
Yeah.
playing pool.
Where's my car?
So they're I'd heard that it was yeah, exactly, chili con carne. So I'd heard that that's what it's about.
I love that stripped down guitar bouncing kind of rhythm and those timpanis. Man, the boom boom.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And now here is where the Edge, his vocals sound really good. It's that background, almost like that dual vocals harmonizing, and at one point, call response, I need your love. That just works really, really well because the Edge can sing for sure, and this definitely is a great example of that. I think it does sound like the Joshua Tree, like you said, the American West, and it has that kind of that imagery and the longing of the anguished soul, And I also wrote this down. Bono's vocals at the 4-minute mark, right at about 4:00, like thunder needs rain. But he says, like a thunder needs rain, like a preacher needs pain. He kind of goes into another gear, like another level with his
love of passion. Yeah.
Of passion, right? And at that level of his career, he still was able to go full on in that level of his voice.
One thing that is a real pet peeve of mine, and they do it here a little bit, is a repetition. And I think there's a little bit too much like. I mean, there's almost as if he's trying to go too far down the road of comparing this to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's repetition. I need your love is maybe 10 times in the song. I don't know if I guess it's actually the chorus actually, so they may get away with it there some.
I think the intent is to make it like this hypnotic effect, but I have felt before like maybe they could have trimmed it a little bit. It definitely has all that passion, but maybe it is a little too long. Another question out of left field. This is Rock and Roll Doggies, by the way. It's two lifelong friends breaking down music. It's been important in our lives, and we're doing U2's Rattle and Hum as we go through the catalog of U2, start to finish, album by album, track by track. What if Rattle and Hum was just B-sides? Or what if it was just the live tracks? What if it was a live album with some cover songs on it? I mean, like either one of those, it would be a different experience.
Totally.
Right?
I think that if you would have trimmed out the covers and the previously unreleased live material, released just new material, and actually included, I still haven't found what I'm looking for, as a bonus track at the end of the album, this would have been a really good album. And I think I think it would have been, I don't know, would it have been commercially received more favorably? Critics would have probably said, just call it Joshua Tree Part 2.
Yeah, I think you're right. It would have been more like outtakes from the Joshua Tree, because these are not new songs necessarily. They're from the same era. I mean, It would have been, I've had the same thought, and I've got a list of the tracks right here, and I would have included Still Haven't Found as a bonus track, like you said. Let's come back to that. Let's look at the next track, which is All Along the Watchtower, which is obviously a cover version of the famous Bob Dylan, original by Bob Dylan. I always liked. It's very understated and haunting, and it gives this sinister kind of, I love it. I also think the best version in terms of a full band is Jimi Hendrix did that song in a whole different way. And I think that's probably the best full band studio version of that song.
This was my first Bob Dylan album, John Wesley Harding. So I'm a little bit biased toward the Dylan version of this. I'd also read that Hendrix also came really close to covering I Dreamed I Saw St. Augustine, which is off that album, which I would have loved to have heard him cover that.
John Wesley Harding is one of Bruce's favorite Bob albums. I've actually
Is it really?
heard that this week.
I don't know why. It's a good album. And it's I don't want to go off on a tangent, but it seems like it's a bit underappreciated in the lengthy catalog of Dylan material. It's not like, Nashville Skyline or Blonde on Blonde. It's not mentioned in the same vein as that.
Except for Watchtower, which is the one track.
Well, right.
But yeah, so here's All Along the Watchtower, and we all, different opinions about it. I think it fits. I think Bono's voice is raw and passionate. I think they do a good job of it. I think they do make it their own. It's fun. In the movie, which this is not about the movie, we all saw him, trying to remember the lyrics to it. So it kind of, as much as we don't want to think about the movie, I do recall when he's like, who knows the lyrics to what? How long
and they strum out a few chords. Okay, yeah, that's good. Let's go with it.
Yeah, right. I enjoy it. It's a great song, period, before you two ever even thought about covering it. It's a fantastic song. And I just sent you a commentary a few days ago that I'd never seen before about the imagery in it. And so I think it's always fascinating what it comes down to, what it's about. Do they cross the line? All I got is a red guitar, 3 chords, and the truth.
I don't know. We go back to this age-old question with this album. Are they acting as fans of Dylan, who, by the way, played the Hammond played the Hammond on Hot Moon 269. By the way.
Yeah.
Played the Hammond organ on.
Which is in the beginning of it. It's
hope they didn't bring Bob in to do 269 cuts. I don't have time for this. I think, again, this is, U2 paying homage to a great guitarist, which they will do later in this album, and paying homage to Bob Dylan.
You're talking about Hendrix as a guitarist, but he really doesn't have anything to do with this song. I mean, it's a Bob.
Well, he doesn't, but I mean, it's not played. It's played more in the Hendrix style than it is the Dylan style. He's not playing it almost. It's not like a toned down version. It's an amped up and they did this right after this. It's Rock and Roll Stops the Traffic, and so it's a.
How annoying would it be if you didn't like U2 or you kind of liked U2 and you heard him say, "All I got is a red guitar, 3 chords, and the truth"? Is that a little bit much to hear?
I don't know that I can answer that question because I don't know that I'm able to pull myself out of looking at this band objectively enough to the point of saying,
okay, but
yes or no.
But you can imagine.
I see your point, though.
Yeah, I mean, did they jump the shark? I've been wanting to say that. Jump the shark. I mean, did they step across a line of it makes me roll my eyes a little. It's a little cringy to me. Okay. And that's okay. It's not like it has to be black or white. Like everything they do is great, or that this album was a full cringe. It's like there can be semi cringy moments, and don't get me wrong, when I'm in the car I will say it at, full voice and sing it and shout it, and I will say I've got 3 chords and the truth, but it's a little bit much. It's Bono being Bono, okay, and in the way that became, I think, annoying to some people, not to me, and again, this is looking backwards down the.
But they did not actually coin that phrase. So that's not something that Bono just spit out.
No, well, I mean, why red guitar? Why?
Okay, that you're right about that. To my knowledge, that part of it, yeah, I don't know where that comes from. I don't know where the red guitar comes from.
And
3 chords and the truth has been out there for quite some time. But.
Yeah, the rest is up to you. It's a little bit high-handed. So Bono being Bono, which in the early days or up to this point, kind of meant being super grandiose with gestures and high-handed ideals and things like that. Then later, I think it meant he morphed out of that seemingly self-important phase, which I think was misperceived by people. I believe his sincerity is there. So.
Or is it tongue in cheek? Is this the
beginnings of
precursor to the precursor of Achtung Baby, where he's saying, all right, let's give them what you want. Let's give them what they want.
I think this is him.
And just it's like
running up
one sentence as compared to a whole album, but maybe you're getting.
I think he's running up one side of that mountain.
Yeah.
And I think Octung Baby is coming down the other side of it.
Yeah.
That's a good point, because it could be this is, sowing those seeds and of like you're getting at this point he is the world's biggest rock star, and everything that he rebelled against or parodied, later and Pop Mart and Mephisto and everything else is kind of the flip side of this. So anyway, it's such a great song. 1968. Can you believe it is still poignant? It seems like that song and so many others of that era are poignant even today.
And you can
It's
think
really
Woodstock. You can think Woodstock for
sure.
and obviously putting Hendrix out there with the Star Spangled Banner and I don't know what year Hendrix. What year Hendrix released that? Did Hendrix release it in 68?
No, I think John Wesley Harding was
67, wasn't it? Wasn't John Wesley Harding 67?
I thought it was 68, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, either way, we're talking about the late 60s.
So yeah, I wrote down too from a thing I texted you. It's about establishing a new set of societal values based on human life, as opposed to like the value of each person. And the hour is getting late, the storm building. I think that it's also part of the journey, which I believe is this thread that goes through this whole album, almost a spiritual journey, which is weird because the album is so disjointed, but there is a spiritual thread that goes through the new songs, which I'll get back to that in a minute.
Oh, I'll throw this out there and then we'll move on to track 6. Along the Watchtower starts off with, okay, what are these guys doing? What's the Joker doing? What's the thief doing? And then verse 3, it actually sets the stage for what's going on in verse 1 and verse 2. It is a incredibly backwards way of writing music. I'm sure he probably didn't write it that way per se. He wrote it and then, maneuvered the verses around, but it's chronologically speaking, it's pretty ambitious lyrically.
It is, and it's so intense. You look at the short verses, it's not a lot of words.
Right.
Paints this picture. It's an incredible song. I think it, if nothing else, if nothing else, this track served to remind me what a great song it is. And I enjoy them playing this cover song. I definitely think that they did a good job with it.
Track 6, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. I still haven't found one. I'm looking for a song that was obviously on the Joshua Tree, and this song is a much different version than what is on the Joshua Tree, but it is I love when they play this song as a gospel song. I don't know that I would want this version on the Joshua Tree, but I very much appreciate the gospel feel on this song. And they've subsequently recorded this song or performed this song with gospel choirs.
Yeah.
I love this version.
Yeah, same here. I love the way they did it on the album, but I think this is a great take on it. And of course, a world-class choir and the voices that are on this album or this version of it. We've spoken a lot about the song itself. No need to rehash that, but I mean, this is a great version of it. And like you said, speaking of Dylan, he's one of those guys that reinvents his songs over and over. And I love the way it's a gospel song in its bones already. But when they brought this gospel choir in and they made it literally this gospel choir song, it sounds so good, so good.
And it's really good in the movie too, particularly with Bono with the arm and sling. That really adds a lot, I think, to the song.
It was I had heard that 100 times before I realized that the male solo voice in there was not Bono. The part that's I believe the kingdom come, like I just got it in my head that was him. And I
Really?
thought, yeah, I thought it was him trying to
It was
sound.
a broken arm. Actually, it didn't break his arm, but
Yeah.
I
So
always got a kick out of the how they put him in a sling, and it was like they took, like, it wasn't anything. It looked primitive, like they took these pieces of wood and strapped it on. It's
like something they gave you at camp because there's nobody there to
yeah,
help.
a camp in the 1850s at that.
Right.
You know, it's like a camp, 1855 teenage camp for boys. You know,
You're on the Oregon Trail.
rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine. Get back to the fields.
You'll be
Um,
fine.
So that's all I got for that.
Yeah.
One.
Okay, next track, Freedom for My People. Here's another track, song, snippet that I just have no use for.
Gee, I can't understand why.
I mean, there's no purpose here except to show that they went to Memphis and they heard some genuine blues. Okay, great. I mean, it adds to the bloat.
The only thing that I have to offer on this song is that it serves as a appropriate segue to the next song.
It does.
That's all I've got. I mean, it's just, what do you say?
It kind of does.
That's all I think it does.
And maybe that's because we've heard it that way a million times. We expect, it's like Pavlovian. We expect for Silver and Gold to be next because that.
Do we even review this song? Because it's not really a U2 song. It's just Ed showing up. It's just Ed showing up on a sidewalk watching this guy play 10 instruments at one time.
Right. And it just looks at him.
That pensive look on his face. Like
Ed just got on him
remote or something.
He's got his hat on with his ace playing card stuff in there. It messes with the flow for sure. I just feel like
again, this is just poor track selection.
Yeah, there's like
what
there's not a snippet between every track. Why is there a snippet between those tracks? It's the only snippet. Where are those snippets?
It's like they went into the studio and just had all these recordings and they just threw it on the floor and they just picked up a bunch of pieces and put it together and said,
it's
okay,
like something it's like something in the background of Pink Floyd's The Wall that you heard off of a TV set. That's like a little snippet from some old movie. Like why?
Yeah, it's like a cash register on money from The Wall, yeah. Or a Dark Side of the Moon.
I think it tends towards a little bit of conceit. Like, check out how bluesy we are. We really heard some blues.
So you really think, I understand why it would come off that way. Do you think that was really their intent of, hey, look at us, we're cool, we're checking out American blues?
No, I don't. I think that's the way it comes off unintentionally. I think that, like you said, they are falling in love with and discovering, all these different kinds of American music. And they're down in, first time they ever went to Memphis, and they're in, the Mississippi River, Sun Studios, the Badlands, the Deep South, the American West, all these different, they're just discovering culture and music. I don't think they're trying to show off. I just don't think there was this is good for the movie, not good for the album.
That's a very good way of putting it. And with that, we're going to forget about it.
And we're gone.
Track 8, Silver and Gold, a song written with Miami Steven Van Zandt.
When did he transition from Miami to Little Steven?
That's a good question.
I like Miami Steve with the hats and the suits, the white suit with the white hat.
The goofy looks on his face where he's rolling his eyes and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, at some point, this is like our worlds colliding. And it's like a dream come true. Oh, you two mentioned Little Steven.
As a side note, and I think I've mentioned this before, but they did Sun City. Gosh, who else was in all that? I think Ron Wood was in on it. Lou Reed and
a lot of urban, a lot of black artists, Bombada, and
I remember going, wait a minute, who's that guy with the long hair and the beard? What? He looks Lucifer character.
That was the devil.
It took me about a week to figure out. Oh my gosh!
I remember it was kind of a shitty beard, though. It was
horrible. It was horrible.
Like, come on. So the song, I know where the song was written. It was written in a hotel room in New York City, around about the time of a friend of ours.
Steven. Do you think he's name dropping there?
Nah, I
I don't think he
that.
is.
I mean, he wants to tell a story, and I love how U2 is so committed to apartheid. Before it was, or I guess right when it became this, it was trendy. It became this, commonly people were aware of it.
I mean, it had been around for, in some shape, form, or fashion in South Africa, I think, for hundreds of years.
Yeah,
I may be
exactly.
mistaken, but people had evidently had enough of segregation in South Africa, and it really became, I guess, a big issue when Nelson Mandela was sentenced in
Yeah.
1960.
So when Artists Against Apartheid, when that came out as a single, Ain't Gonna Play Sun City, and like we said, we saw Bono as the devil in the video and everything, and that was a lot of fun. And it got
Pre-McFisto devil, but go ahead.
pre-McFisto. I got into the cause. I started to understand the cause, and that's where this is rooted. The song I had heard about, I had heard of the song because it was on the album, which was the Artists Against Apartheid album, a studio version of it. Right? Is that right?
I don't. I can't vouch for that one way
But
or
we'd
the other.
heard of the song. Somehow we knew of the song.
It was a B-side to something off the Joshua Tree, I think. But now it may have been on the Sun City album as well. It probably was. So
I do not know. Cannot confirm.
one of our followers can research that and let us know.
Yeah. So yes, it is over the top and maybe at times self-important and preachy, but you know what? That's who this version of U2 is. And that's great. I'll take it. They are the biggest band in the world at this moment, and maybe a little self-important. Fine, bring it on. This song really ignited the self-righteous indignation in me as it raised awareness of all these issues like apartheid. It was also kind of cool to hear him say shithouse in the beginning. In a shithouse, a shotgun. Like, oh, that's cool. Hee hee, Bono. He's saying bad words. The last verse is really strong, and it never struck me. You know how we discover things doing this podcast that we never knew about or didn't appreciate? The last verse. Hold on. Oh, there it is. I got too many monitors going on here. Silver and gold. Yep, silver and gold.
And while you're thinking, I will say that I believe I had a button once, unless I just dreamed this in another life, that said, "Okay, Edge, play the blues." I love that. I love that.
I always love that too. And I've heard people criticize it and say,
"Oh,
he's not playing the blues. It's not blues." Well, we know that. He wasn't playing the blues. He was playing this high-pitched, kind of riff that was
people love to. I mean, they came off a massive album that was both critically and commercially highly successful. And some of these critics and some of these music aficionados that don't, that listen to music casually, I guess, they want to nitpick on this stuff. Really, if somebody's going to nitpick on "Okay, Edge, play the blues," I mean, I would hope that I don't walk around life. I'm glad that I don't walk around life having people nitpick on something like that I would say.
Those wannabe music critics are nothing but glorified bloggers. Chains no longer bind me.
Can we get Dale? Can we get Dale on the? Can we get Dale on the podcast?
Dale Gribble. The last verse. Chains no longer bind me, not the shackles at my feet. Outside are the prisoners, inside the free. Set them free. That hit me this time going through prepping for the podcast, because this is a song of victory, of inside a person's soul, that the shackles are there, the chains are still there, but inside you can be free. And
a follow up to that from that same song, which I think is I think it's the best lyric in the song, is "Mister, I ain't got nothing, but it's more than you got."
Yes. It's kind of a badass song.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's yeah.
He's sick of looking down the barrel of white South Africa while they argue. I mean, I love the little speeches on this album, little asides, because they've become part of my subconscious. And I can text you in the middle of a Tuesday afternoon and say, something like, hotel room in New York City around about the time, and you would be able to complete that because that's just become part of our consciousness.
I like how he says argue. I can almost
While they
I
argue.
can almost see him rolling his eyes while they argue,
Yes. I know so many of those things as younger fanboys, I picked up on that stuff and I was like, he's so cool the way he says it. While they argue.
While they argue.
Yeah. Am I bugging you? I don't mean to
bug you.
Next track is Pride in the Name of Love. It's a live version of a hit song from The Unforgettable Fire. Great track, great version. Love it. It has all the power and glory of that song. And yet I wonder, does it belong here? Do we need it? I mean, I enjoy it. I love it. But why is it here? What do you think?
I don't know. I got nothing. I don't. I would not have included this. I like the song. I liked it. Unforgettable for. I love the guitar solo.
Sure. And I love the live version of it.
I do too.
Is this a live album or is this some new tracks? This album has an identity crisis. So
it does. It does.
But if you pull away the new stuff,
I know. It bumps it up to if I in my mind, if I were to take the best songs from this album and make a 9-track album, I can put it up there pretty doggone high on my list. It's not top tier like Octung Baby and Joshua Tree, but I again jumping ahead here a little bit, I put it up there and hanging out with Pop, which is another grossly underappreciated album.
Grossly. But the only reason we're doing this podcast is the new songs. We wouldn't be doing it if it's a live album. We didn't do Blood Red Sky or Wide Awake in America, even though that had new songs on it. Different. And that is a great place to take a break right here and wrap up part 1 of Rattle and Hum. Check out part 2. It's available right now, wherever you get your podcasts. Until then, Smurf, would you please do the honors?
Yes, thank you all for logging on and listening to our thoughts on one of the most influential bands of the modern era. Please be sure to follow us at Rock and Roll Doggies on Instagram and on Twitter at Roll Doggies for details about our next podcast and other tidbits as we take a chronological journey through the discography of U2. Until we meet again, good night, everybody.
No, it's a musical journey.